Hello there. Today I will be making a commentary of the German T8 cruiser, the Admiral Hipper. Now first of all, I actually really love how the ship looks, especially with the German camo. I just think this ship absolutely looks amazing. It's such a nice looking ship. It actually looks more like a battleship than a cruiser in my opinion, or a really badass cruiser. But let's start with the actual commentary. The first thing you'll notice is obviously the massive difference between HE and AP damage. Now, for example, something like a Baltimore does 2.8k HE and 4.6k AP. This one does only 2.3k AP, but 5.9k AP. So it's obvious this is intended as an AP machine. The torpedoes are the same you get as T5, I think. They don't change. You're still using exactly the same torps. That's not necessarily a problem. They're very strong in close range, but they are very rarely used as well. The game, obviously, mostly T8s, which is good for the sake of this demonstration. Obviously, I use the premium repair and the defensive fire and catapult fighter. The mode is the new mode called Zone. I'm not really that much of a fan of this because it seemed like VG hasn't learned their lesson. They still have not ensured that there is no way of there becoming a draw. Like, with all the draws that this game had before they pretty much scrapped standard battles, you'd think they would be prepared for this, but they made exactly the same mistake they made in the past. So now people are getting a ton of draw in this zone because it ends with a couple of ships that then flee and or a DD hiding somewhere. It just becomes a mess. Now, the biggest problem with Zone is, of course, people are misplaying it quite heavily. I'm writing in chat that I hope our BBs understand to support us in the circle, because one of the main reasons this tends to end in a draw is because people try to play their usual sniping style with the battleships instead of supporting their team in the circle or in the zone. They don't understand that you don't actually need to kill everyone to win in this mode. All you need to do is push them out of the circle, and if our DDs are pushing and our cruisers are backing them up and our battleships are backing them up, then you win, because you just push them out. They can't stand up to you and they have to flee, and then you cap it in like 60 seconds. That's how it's supposed to go, but most of the time you get battleships sniping mile away, DDs are all alone in the cap, cruisers are afraid to go in because the battleships are supporting them, so they're basically alone against the enemy fleet and they just get sniped to shit. So I don't know if this is something that will change with time. I'm kind of skeptical. I think they need to implement some sort of ways to ensure that people take more active part in the actual zone instead of treating it like just another cap zone. Anyway, the first thing, this is one of the few times I actually switched to HE because I see there's a Mayhem, a DD. Even with the minimal damage you do, you obviously over-penetrate DDs, so you do next to no damage. This is probably one of the few times, or any times, when you should switch to HE on a German cruiser. Of course, there's the module damage. AP will rarely damage anything. You might break through some turrets with no penetration, but more than likely you'll just miss. Or well, not do any damage. Oh, that's unfortunate. He's turning away from me. Wow, yeah. The other guys up there are gonna get the kill. I won't get this kill because he's turning away from me. That's unfortunate. I have no idea what this Mayhem was doing though. He was trying to be very aggressive, but it kinda backfired on him. Now, the Hipper was actually in a much worse state before 0.5.1 because they have misplaced the hull on the ship. So the hull was actually floating much higher in the water than it is now. This of course resulted in a much bigger target and above all a much bigger citadel. So the ship was constantly being blasted out of water and it was really painful to play then. It's gotten slightly better with the patch, but this ship is still a bit of a question. There are times when you can have really good games in it, but there are also times when it feels like you get citadeled from absolutely the weirdest angles. The armor in the ship is obviously quite thin, and that's why angling doesn't always seem to do that much, and I've had games where I basically missed citadeled right at the start even though I was angling myself and turning away. It just happened to be a lucky shot that landed exactly where it should, or maybe I wasn't paying attention for a second. but the ship is played very much like the Pensacola actually. It actually reminds me a lot of the Pensacola. You might notice by the way that I'm shooting AP at the New Mexico. That's right, you can use AP against battleships, especially in this ship because you do so much AP damage, so even if you don't Citadel, it's worth it for the increase in damage. Of course, if you're fighting some really high tier battleships, it's more worth it to use HE than it is to use AP, simply because fires deal percentage damage. So if you're shooting at, let's say, a Montana that has 96k HP, one fire will deal more damage than multiple volleys of AP, simply because it's percentage damage based, so you just want fires on them in that case. But anyway, right now it's the usual starting mess of this zone. People are afraid to really push in, some people are going left, some people right. It's pretty common. I'm trying to stay somewhat near to IDDs, so I can support them and help them out in case I think they have a Benson or something. No, they have a Mutsuki, they had a Mayhem, they had something else I can't remember. Might have been a Benson. I think I'm gonna ground here because I'm too eager to get a shot at this North Carolina. The North Carolina is often called a battle cruiser instead of a battleship, and that's because the armor on it is actually quite thin. And you can AP Citadel it with a multitude of cruisers. Like even basic 203mm from the Pensacola or the Aoba can penetrate the North Carolina. You might not get a Citadel, but you'll still do significant penetration damage. So that's why it's also why people who switch from the Colorado to the North Carolina often struggle in the beginning, because it's a completely different playstyle. You go from this slow tank to this speedy battlecruiser. Anyway, tried to get some hits in the Cleveland, didn't really get much done. Kind of waiting for the battle to pick up a bit. This is the kind of point where it's very hard to push in, especially as Admiral Hipper. If you were a Japanese cruiser, there would be some more options to push in, but because of your abysmal detection, you can't go anywhere near them, especially not when they have DDs around. You're gonna get detected even before you shoot and just blown out of the water. Especially with the size of the Citadel on the ship, it's very hard to be offensive. So much of the defensive sniping styles from earlier tiers continue with this ship. And overall, I've been quite underwhelmed with it. In fact, I've been quite underwhelmed with the whole German line. Like, I keep expecting them to have some great ship, but they really don't. They haven't had any. They have had some decent ships, like the Königsberg and Nuremberg to some extent. The Königsberg is quite good. The Nuremberg is also quite good, not quite as good, but still, they are the upper tier ships. But then you have ships like York, which is absolute garbage. Then you have ships like the Karlsruhe, which is absolute garbage. And Kolberg isn't really that special either. Whereas on the US line, you got the amazing Cleveland, the amazing Omaha. These are fantastically strong ships. And on the Japanese line, you got the Aoba is a really good ship, but you also got the fantastic Myoko and the fantastic Mogami. And I keep waiting for this fantastic German cruiser, and it's simply not appearing. You keep going from decent to less decent to garbage to decent again. It's like, okay, where's the thing that will finally reward all my hard work I put into this line? The idea of a long-range AP sniper is admirable, but more often than not, you see what happens there. You land a bunch of shots on another cruiser and you'll do almost no damage. So it tends to get kind of frustrating, because it's supposed to be your main source of damage, but it's highly unreliable. You can do absolutely massive damage, or you can do absolutely pitiful. Like 7 hits from 7 kilometers, simply because he was angling his armor. That's what the thing is, you suffer so heavily from angled armor. And that's not even a Citadel. Basically, in order to get the most out of the damage on the ship, you have to land Citadels. That's what it really comes down to. There are some games where you can just get amazing damage in by landing a ton of citadels, but then there are games like this where you somehow just can't seem to get that citadel, and then you spend shooting volley after volley after volley after volley trying to get that kill, trying to finally get him down. And it gets frustrating at times, because at times the ship feels very unrewarding. Of course, there's this fantastic feeling when something like an Atago is miles away and you land a perfect citadel on him, or multiple citadels. Of course, that's very satisfying, but it's equally disappointing when you land a volley and then you do no damage. It's I don't know. This ship hasn't really impressed me. None of the German ships really have impressed me at this point. And we're having a bit of struggle. They're starting to push us out, and our biggest problem is that our battleships are all over the map. Of course, there are Tirpitzes. I don't mean to say that all Tirpitzes are bad players, but more often than not, Tirpitzes tend to play quite terribly, honestly. The vast majority of them are just very, very bad. And if you look at this, we have a Tirpitz at J2 and one at B2. Basically as far away from the zone as they can on our side, and I have no idea what they're doing there. But it's just highly frustrating. It's people who basically have been playing Congos and Fuses, and they've been sniping in T5 and T6. Now they have finally reached high tier, and they are doing the same shit here, and it's pretty frustrating. Now, two cruisers, this is where, if they're not shooting at me, this would be optimal, but because I'm the target, this is not so much optimal. See how much work I have to put in to actually finally get these hits, and finally basically do some damage. But then when you finally do land that perfect volley, then you do a huge chunk of damage, and it's very satisfying. But sometimes it takes you a while to get to that point when you finally start landing those hits. And more often than not, you can't even land them on a majority of targets at the max range. So you basically have a ton of range, but you can't use it because your damage is so unreliable. Of course, there are some advantages, like the fact that you can use AP on the New Mexico and other battleships and do significant damage. But this isn't the cruiser assassin I kinda hoped and expected it to be. It's a sniper, but it's a average sniper. This is where I start noticing basically that both the Tirpitzes are all over the spot, and I'm trying to understand what they are even doing. They are basically sitting outside a cap. All the cruisers are dying inside the cap. We're starving to death here. It's only me and this DD that's basically keeping us in the game. If we both die, then they instantly win because there's no one holding the point. Now, it's kind of frustrating because battleships don't understand that they should be sharing in the damage. Their North Carolina, for example, is playing quite smartly. It's pushing in and pushing me out. And there's nothing I can do at this point except start retreating, because I cannot take him on 1v1. I can do a nice amount of damage, and I can angle my armor to mitigate the damage he does to me, but in the end this is a battle I simply cannot win. And all it takes is one good citadel from him and he will completely wipe me out, so all I can do is flee at max speed and basically try to chip some damage off him, and hope that our battleships finally get a clue and get their asses into the circle where they should be. Of course, these volleys, as you can see, 4 to 5k, sometimes 8k. It's nice damage, but it's not really that impressive. I'm not certain if this nice damage is worth the fact that your HE is absolutely abysmal, and the fact that your ship is one big citadel. I'm actually legitimately confused that why he hasn't citadeled me yet. I think I'm getting really lucky, or my angling is throwing off his aim to that point, because at this range you quite often need a citadel on this ship. It's very much like the Pensacola in that matter. It has a big citadel in the middle. Starting to get frustrated because we're about to lose this game if that DD dies. our Mutsuki is basically keeping us in the game right now. For those that don't understand this zone mode, if no friendly ships are in the cap zone and the enemy is there, they will cap it in 60 seconds, and there's no way you can delay it by shooting them. It's only by entering the zone that you can delay it. So now we finally have a battleship in the zone. It took him like 10 minutes. I have no idea why he sailed all the way north, but now we finally have a chance of turning this game around. I gave up on the North Carolina, because from this angle I'm not landing. If he angles even slightly against me, then my penetrations stop, because the penetrations you get on battleships are only against broadsides, really. If they angle even slightly, then you have no chance, and it's just a waste of time even shooting at them. The problem is our turrets on our... we have 4 minutes left and we need to kill 5 of them. And the thing is, both our turrets should just charge into them and push them away. Basically, we need aggression. They have high HP pools, they need to push, but they're not understanding that they need to be aggressive. Instead, they are sitting back and sniping. Luckily, the enemy team is for some reason challenging us, including the carriers pushing up. I think they are trying to push us out. But since our turrets has finally arrived, we might have a chance of winning this. That was the case though. You saw that 6 hits on the Independence and I did maybe 3000 damage. That is the part that I don't like about this ship, is the fact that AP damage is so unreliable. It's amazing when you get the Citadels, but when you don't, it's meh. Yeah, as I said, the difference between getting a Citadel is all of a sudden insta-killed. Managed to actually get Confederate out of it. We got 3 minutes left, need to kill 3 ships. At this point I'm just taking a risk and hoping the Colorado won't shoot me, that he'll be too focused on someone else. And I'm just trying to take out these Atagas. I activated my defensive fire in case that carrier had given those bombers the last order to bomb me. Okay, and that was not a Citadel apparently. Need to aim further back.
Enemy cruiser destroyed.
Gets a bit annoying when you know that the Tagas have a self-heal, whereas you as a T8 do not. Oh nice, I Citadel the other Targa as well. We got 2 minutes left, need to pump damage into this Colorado now. Or basically I need to hunt down that Targa, but I'm trying to pump some damage into this Colorado on the way to ensure that we can get a win out of this. One minute 50 left. This is getting very close. Luckily he's giving me a lot of broadside, so I'm able to pump some damage into him and hopefully these torps will finish him off. Not quite. They did good damage. The Targa realized he can't leave the zone because the Colorado is about to die. If he leaves the zone, then we still have time to win out with a cap. I'm confident the Colorado is going to die, so I switched to the Targa before he decides to run. Expected him to turn towards me. He did, but much later than I expected, so I avoided the bullet. Not as much damage as I hoped for. Angling myself against him so he doesn't Citadel me, because I'm so low that one good Citadel can insta-kill me. Oh, just not one hit. Oh, our carrier is pleased. Oh, I didn't have time to thank him. We managed to squeeze out the win. I didn't check how many seconds were left. I'm surprised it's more than 30. The XP was good. This was, I think, the first win of my day today. But the base XP wasn't really that special. The damage, about 139,000, I think. It looked like 139k. Oh, we had 37 seconds left. It said 19 minutes 23 seconds. We had 37 seconds left. But this is an example of a game that could have been so much easier if our battleships knew what they were doing. Anyways, I'm going to jump into the module commentary. Now, as usual, I will start with the modules. Now, the first most important upgrade, in my opinion, is absolutely the range. You are not a very good brawler. I mean, thanks to your AP and the fact that they've lowered the hull, you're better at it, but you want to spend much of the game at max range or at very long range. So personally, I prefer getting the range first. It's a cheaper upgrade as well. That's not to say that this hull upgrade isn't good. I mean, as you can see, it gives you some rudder turn rate, it gives you some HP, it gives you some AA. All things that are good, of course, but I don't think they're as valuable as the range, especially when it comes to grinding more XP to unlock it. So, in my opinion, go range first, followed up by the hull. Consumables, as usual, the premium repair. The default one has a 90-second cooldown on a German cruiser. That's just a no-no. Use the premium repair, much better. I do fine with the default fighter and the default defensive AA consumable. I don't think you need anything else. Obviously, lately it's actually become questionable if I want to use hydroacoustic, simply because there seems to be so few carriers. But considering that hydroacoustic still seems very underwhelming, and considering how bad this AA is without the buff or without the consumable, I think it's kind of necessary still to use it. The fighter plane is, well, you can't even have anything else, so just the fighter plane. Upgrades, of course, main battery modification. It reduces your chance of being detonated, it makes your guns repair faster and less chance that they become damaged. So, must have. Accuracy, you're gonna spend a lot of your time sniping, so basically you need to land your shots as well, otherwise it's a bit of a waste of time. None of these others even really come close to being as useful. This is engine repair time. This one I use mainly because at the lower tiers, especially is at tier 3, 4, 5, the German cruiser, even at tier 6, the German cruisers have a tendency to lose engine power very easily, like the engine breaks constantly. So I picked this up somewhere at T4, T3, and I haven't looked back. It's worked fine. This one is quite underwhelming anyways, if one of you is considering taking this one. I only take this on battleships really, it's not worth it to take it on much else. Because the risks work the same way as the captain perk that reduces it by 7%, so it's not, it's multiplicative. And here of course, his steering gear modification. You're not gonna be spammed too much, set on fire and such, and basically angling yourself is far more important, so I take steering gear. None of these others really, in my opinion, warrant even a conversation. This one, nah, not even worth it, because you have premium repair, so you're looking at a 60-second cooldown. It's just not worth it. You're gonna be repairing while you fire anyways. This is by far the best option for a cruiser. And this one is once again very straightforward. You don't do anything with being able to see longer when your range is 17.8, so obviously you want the stealth. And actually, I can look, one last thing I can look at is the flags. It's actually, or camouflage, sorry, actually quite useful to use the detectability camo on this. So you get your surface detectability to 12.8, because this has quite a high detectability, this ship. Now it's not as bad as, let's say, the Pensacola that has something absurd like 15, but it's still quite high for a cruiser. So anything that you can do to bring it down is worth it. Last we have the captain perks. Now, my captain perks are a bit of a mess right now, simply because, well, I will explain it on the way. Of course, first of all, situation awareness, absolute must-have. This is the only must-have perk you must have. Well, it's obvious if you're detected, especially now that AP is fixed. If you're not angling your armor, you're gonna be citadeled, and you won't know if a deity is targeting you. So this is an absolute must-have. Second tier, once again, expert marksman. You'll be using your guns more than anything else. None of these others even compete. So obviously this one, I already explained why fire prevention is garbage in another video, so I won't do it here. Here you want to be getting Superintendent if you never plan to respec. Now personally I plan to respec once I hit T9, so then I will spec to Superintendent. So if you're planning on doing a respec at some point around T9, then you can take High Alert, because Superintendent is pretty much useless until T9. The reason people take it at T9 is because you get a, let me show you on my zone, you get this consumable. Repair party, the same that battleships have. You get a self-repair that heals you. Now obviously having Superintendent gives you another heal. So you have one extra heal, which makes it absolutely fantastic. That's why everyone takes this on cruisers. And that's why I will also respec to it once I hit T9. But until then, it's largely useless. I mean, you get an extra fighter plane and you get an extra defensive AA. But I rarely blow through both of mine. Especially now with there's a few CVs. So if you plan on respecking, just get High Alert. I think it's better, because especially since German cruisers, as you level up, especially around T4, T5, even T6, they tend to break a lot, especially the engine. So being able to repair that faster and being able to repair fires that follow faster is, in my opinion, more important. Of course, at T9 you'll want Superintendent. The T4 was a bit of a... this required a bit of thought, actually. When I was at lower tiers I considered Last Stand, but the constant engine braking kind of disappears around T7. The York doesn't break as much anymore, and this Hipper I don't think I've lost engine once except for some really funky Citadel hits. So that's, the Last Stand isn't really worth it. This one is obviously pointless, so it comes down to Demolition Expert and Advanced Firing Training. Now the reason I went with Advanced Firing Training is because you so rarely use HE. The problem is your HE damage is so bad, so using it in order to make use of this perk is so rare that in the end I went for the Advanced Firing Training, which increases your AA defense. And considering it's one of your weaknesses, the garbage AA, making it stronger is obviously, in my opinion, a smart choice. For the T5, I will most likely once again go for Concealment Expert. It is, so far in my experience, it has been the absolute best high tire cruiser skill. Anyway, that was my Admiral Hipper commentary. I'm actually, how far away am I? I'm actually approaching the ruin fairly soon. I've been playing this quite a bit, like, it's been a decent ship. But I'm pretty close to the ruin, and it's supposed to be the first German cruiser that's actually real good. So we'll see how that one will work out. Anyways,